Hello everyone, welcome to another session. Today we're going to learn about using Docker with Grafana. This is the part 2 of the series and we will continue from where we left the part 1. My name is Usman Ahmed and I work in Grafana Labs as a senior developer advocate, and I have been in the industry for more than 15 years. And if you'd like to connect with me, or you can scan this QR code, or you can also check the links in the description below. So today what we're gonna learn is we will see the prerequisite before we deploy the Grafana image in Docker. Then we will also learn how to use the Docker Hub and search about the Grafana images. Also, we will understand some of the default paths. We will take a look into it as well. And finally, we will come to the part where we will start using Grafana by deploying it using both Docker run command and Docker compose command. And last but not least, there is always a section of troubleshooting. If things does not go your way, you always know where to find it or check it. So let's get started. So I have created this documentation guide where we will follow from part 1 where we left by installing Docker and its required services. Today we're gonna see how we can use it now to deploy Grafana. So the first thing is to see if all the services are up and running, and we can do that. So I log into my terminal, which is actually a virtual machine. I'm using CentOS, and first thing is to see if Docker and it pre-dependent services, which is containerd, is up and running. So you can simply type the command, for example, systemctl status docker, and it is running. And you can do same for containerd, and both are up and running, which is good. Now the second is we will like to make port 3306 open on our network. So this is an important step before we go further. Most of the time I have seen user issues where they are using maybe 3306, which is normally the default port for Grafana, but you can use other. But the problem comes if that particular port is not open on the server side, maybe due to firewall or some restrictions. So make sure that this port 3306 or any one which you like to use is open. In our case, we will keep the same to use port 3306, which is considered as the default port for Grafana. Okay, so now we come to the section of using Docker Hub. So in Docker, you need to find the right image before you deploy, and this is not just for Grafana, it's for any other container image which you may want to use. But in our case, we will take a look how we can find this information in Docker Hub. So you need to go to this link, which is hubdocker.com. Okay, and I have already logged into this account. It's a free one. If you don't have account, you need to create one and search for Grafana. And you can see now that there are so many Grafana images available. So if, for example, it's the Grafana is for Grafana Loki, it's for Promptail, and so on. What we are interested is today is to use the Grafana OSS version. So we will find this, and we can see this is a verified publisher. It has 10 million downloads and good stars. Yeah. And this is the image we will gonna use. So um, let me go back actually. So yeah. So this is the one way to verify and check that what image you need to use. And yeah, so Grafana OSS, and we can see that it is from the verified publisher and it was recently updated 4 hours ago. So this is good. This is what we want to use as well. There is one more way to see this information using the Docker command, which is to use Docker search Grafana OSS. So let me copy this and let me just clear the terminal and paste it. And now you can see that yes, it is also providing this information as well. But notice a small change here. So you see that this is the one which we want to use. It has a small description, it has a stars, but there are so many other Grafana OSS images as well. So this is for dev purposes. This is someone else. Here you can see someone even put a description that it's a modified Grafana image. So the best practice would be to use the official image because it is good way to get any support, and if you are deploying it on the production or even for learning, you know, if you run into troubles, you can always get support for that. If you use any customized image, which you can, it's not a problem, but you may not get full support because it is modified and the code might be changed and may not get the fix which required. So this is the one which we're gonna use. So let's go back to the documentation. Um, Grafana default paths. So in Grafana, you have some default paths, and in Docker world, some of the paths are predefined. Here is a list of those. So for example, the config path will be etc dot grafana.ini. Same for the storage part, var lib grafana, for logs as well, var log grafana, and some more. Since this is not the detailed series, which I will cover later, but today still we're gonna see a couple of these. For example, we will see how to use the path for the data and how to see the path for the logs. Now we come to the part where we need to use Docker run command to deploy Grafana. But there is one thing which we will learn is something called persistent storage. So in Docker world, you have multiple storage types. So there is something called bind mount bound and persistent storage. Uh, we recommend our users to always use persistent storage. The reason is that if you do not define any volume path, okay, and you want to deploy an image, it will get deployed, and maybe you create some sort of dashboard or have some data. But since there is no volume point defined or storage defined, as soon as you shut down your container or stop it, all the data will be lost. But using persistent storage, if you shut down and make it up again, the data will retain. And this is really important because, as said, that even without defining this parameter, uh, your image will be up and running. You will feel like everything is normal, but in the back end or on the background, there is no storage option, so everything will be temporary. As soon as you shut down your container, everything is lost. So we're gonna take a look how we can define a persistent volume. So this is the command docker volume create and give it a name. So the name we are giving is Grafana storage, okay? And this is the command which we're gonna use to create one. So let's do this. So now we have a persistent volume created, and it is named as Grafana storage. And we can also inspect this to see what basically it has, and it should give us like a JSON output. So let's try it out. So now you see something in JSON format, and you can see like it is created today. Uh, Currently, these are the driver, it's local, and then the mount point. So the mount point is var lib Grafana, var lib docker, then volumes and Grafana storage, and then data. So this is the one which I was talking about, that we need to define a path for the data to get stored, and this is the mount point where all the data will get stored, and it's its logical name. Okay. Now we will use docker run command to deploy Grafana. This is the actual syntax. Before we run it on terminal, let's take a look how it is exactly look like. So it says docker run, then -d. -d is basically for running Docker in detached mode. This means that if you run this command without -d, it will still run, but you will see a whole list of log lines, and you cannot exit from the terminal. If you press, for example, Control C, then you exit, but you also exit the process and the container shut down. With -D, this whole process run in the background, and you can still use your terminal freely. Then comes the -P part. -P is for the port. So we are mapping port 3000 with 3000, which is totally normal. Then giving it a name. So name will be any logical name, and we are giving it a name as Grafana. Then the volume, and we want to define this volume as a path. So this is the one which we created, and the name is Grafana storage, and this is what we are saying where the volume will leads to. So it is a little bit incorrect here. It basically should say like name of the volume of the persistent storage where the data should be stored. I will correct it. And then last but not least, we are defining the path to the Grafana OSS image. And there is a small part says version number. So version number is very important part as well. So by default in Docker world, if you do not define any version number, it will automatically assume you that you want the latest version. But if you want some other version to run because you know like in that particular version there might be a issue which was fixed, but it is again reproducible in the new one. How you can find this version information? So you go back to the hubdocker.com and you click on tags. Okay, and now here you can see like, oh, we have some versions for 9.5, we have some for 10.8. We are not interested in latest Ubuntu or the one which says Ubuntu, because we want to use the one which has the direct version tag. Uh, these are also usable, but that's a little bit different topic, which I will try to cover again in the advanced sections later in future. So here you can see all the version details, like which version was released. So it was last push 17 days ago. So this is how you can find the version information. In our case, we want to use the latest version. So what we're gonna do is we run the above command like this. So everything remains same, except that in the last we specify that we want to use the latest version. This is totally optional. You can still don't need to mention it, and Docker will assume that you are still running the latest version, but it is a good practice to mention like which version you want to really use. So let's do this. So yeah, now you see this hash code. It's SHA1 code, I believe, but we can call it hash. So once the image is pulled, you will probably see something like this. And now we don't know what's going on because we run in it detach mode, and to see what's next if it is up and running. So we use the command docker ps. And now here we can see that, oh, this is the container ID. So this is basically the container ID as well, which is pretty much same in the, yeah, from this bit. Then the image name. So we are using the Grafana latest. It is the command information. It is created 27 seconds ago. It's up for 26. Ports, it says it's mapping to 3000 to 3000, and the name is Grafana. So this is the name which we gave, or would say a logical name which we can use to see the status. And this is exactly what is explained here, that you can use docker ps to see is everything is working fine. If something might be not working fine, you should see up in this status column that it says like exited or waiting, something like that. But in our case, it says up for the last 26 seconds, and if we do again, it still says it is still up about a minute ago. Now let's log into the UI and see if we can access Grafana from our browser. So this is a small part which is really interesting. So as I said, that I am using a virtual machine, and this is my virtual machine IP. So you can see that my virtual machine IP is this one, and I have one other IP which is called Docker 0. So this one is internal. We don't need to use it. What we are interested is to use the machine IP, not the Docker IP. So from the Ethernet 0. So let's copy this and let's open a new tab. So yeah, so let's do something like this. Yeah, log in as admin for both username and password. And we can see that this is the version number, which is the latest one. And we can log in and see everything. We can, for testing purpose, let's try to create just a dummy dashboard from, yeah, and save it. Panel 1, save, new dashboard 1. Okay, so it might need some other mix resource. Okay, yeah, this looks good. Okay, so everything works fine. We can refresh it to see everything is changing, yeah. And now let's log out. And what we're gonna do next is that now we have to stop the container. And to stop the container, we can use the docker stop command. So first see docker ps, and we know the name. We do know the name of our container. It's Grafana. So docker stop Grafana. And if we do again a ps, now we don't see anything. If we do a ps minus a, so minus a shows all history. This will be interesting. And now you see the status says exited 11 seconds ago. Because we stopped the container, it's exited, and before, when we have not stopped, it was still saying up. So this is the way to check that if the container is exited or not, or stopped or not. Okay. So this is for the docker run command. Um, Now we will come to the Docker Compose part. Uh, one, so there is always this talk like which one should be used. So you can use both, but in my experience, Docker Compose is much better because you have a file where you put your code and you can modify it, keep it there, send it to others. In the case of Docker Run, it's a one-line command, and it can get very tricky if you have so many complex options you want to define. So the whole command will get very complex and might cause problems in readability. So let's do check how to use the Docker Compose command. So before we see that Docker Compose can work, we have to verify that if it is available on our machine. So to do that, we run this command Docker Compose version, and we see that we have Docker Compose installed on our machine, which has version 2.21. And if you do not might have this installation available, you can check this link, which is basically the documentation I wrote how to install Docker Engine. It has a complete instruction from system requirements to using right commands and also installing the right packages. Okay, now we come to the part where we need to create a Docker Compose file. So we use the Vim editor. You can use any editor of your choice. I am using Vim because it's really easy also, and seems very powerful. Plus it gives by default the color coding. So uh, we can use directly here. And now I type this code. Okay. So let me explain this code a little bit. Uh, we are defining the version 3.8. So this 3.8 version is basically the Docker Compose syntax, or the versioning which Docker Compose commands uses. This has been changing in the past, so it started, as far as I know, it started from version 1 or from version 2. And there are some Docker Compose commands which are now obsolete in version 3, or may get obsolete. So it is very important to use the latest version and see which command options are available which can be used. Then we define a service, and the service is Grafana. In Grafana, we want to use this image. So it currently says enterprise. What we can do is that we go in insert mode again, and we say Grafana OSS and latest. Okay, and we define a container name as Grafana, but we can name it Grafana Compose. So we know that this is a Docker Compose based one. You can name it anything you want. Restart unless stop. So there are multiple options when you want to restart. You may say set restart always or restart unless stop. It depends what you like. Uh, but normally the best way is to set uh, only restart once it is stop. Otherwise, don't restart. And you can check all this information in the Docker documentation page, which I will add information in my documentation as well. Then to the ports, we define that map 3000 with 3000. Then volumes, it is exactly same. So we have created a Docker volume called Grafana data, and we are defining the path. So as you know, we have seen this default path. So if we want to set the path where the storage should be located, so it is varlib Grafana. And this is what we are defining, that the persistent volume which we had created, named as Grafana data, please use it and store the data in varlib Grafana. So it's basically a mapping. And then defining the volume types, it is Grafana data. This is basically indicating that we are defining it as a persistent volume. So that's pretty much it from the code side. Now let's save it and exit. And now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna run it using Docker Compose up -d, and -d again is for detach mode. So let's do this. So it's pulling the image. We have got some error. Okay, yeah, so I see the mistake. Let's fix it. So I type Grafana and then Grafana dash Grafana should be only Grafana OSS. That is why if you see the error message, it says repository does not exit or may require, uh, uh, sorry, this one. It cannot pull this image, so it does not exist. So now if we do this, now it works. And it created a network, a volume name, Grafana data, Grafana data. So now this is up. So 3, 2, 1, go. Now we run this command docker compose up -t, and as you can see that it created 3 objects, I would say, or 3 services. So first is the network, which is the default, then the volume, Grafana data, and the container name, container itself, which is Grafana compose. This is the name which we have given. So let's see the status, if it is working fine or not. So use docker ps, and we can see that yes, everything looks good. We got the uh, container ID. This is the status when it is created. It is still up, and this is the name. And if we now go back to the login page, so let me just refresh it. Yeah. We can see that, yeah, it is currently again available and everything looks fine. And we can also see one interesting setting here. So if we search for varlib, yeah, data. So this is exactly what I was looking for. So these are the default paths which we have also discussed. And as you can see that for data, it's varlib Grafana, for logs, varlog Grafana, and some so on. We don't need to deep dive again into this because it is a little bit different topic, but I will definitely cover later on. Okay, so everything seems to be working fine. Um, Now, how to stop the container if, for example, you don't need it anymore or you have done the work and you want to use something else. So, so in Docker Compose, if you want to shut down a container, you have to use Docker Compose down command. Not it is a little bit different to what we have used, Docker stop. Docker Compose has its own command, and to use it, you simply copy it and clear the screen and Docker Compose down. And it has now shut down all the services it has created or the objects you say. And if we do Docker PS, everything is now removed, and PS minus A also shows that the container got exited. Uh, yeah. Now comes to the part of troubleshooting. So Uh, this is a very common one, so it might be very tricky for beginners and even sometimes even for me when I am using Docker to run a Docker image for Grafana and then getting an error that a previous image is already a previous container was already created and cannot create it. You have to delete or rename it. So for example, let's rerun this one. Okay, so we have this is from the Docker run command. Okay, so what I will do is that I copy it, and now I will get this error. It says there is a conflict. The container name Grafana is already in use by container this. You have to remove it or rename that container. And even though we don't see anything running, this is a little bit mind-boggling because back on the backend side, the container name Grafana is already in use and we need to remove it. And how to do that? So uh, we use this container Docker container ls command, which use the -a for all, and we use the filter status. So we are using a filter and seeing the status which are either exited or those which got created but maybe still in use and we forgot to shut it down. So let's do this. And we get one output which says exactly the above information. So we have still this container named Grafana which has a container ID 674C and then the rest is same. And uh, it has a status of exited. So we have stopped it, then it got exited, but it is still lying on the system. Now to remove it, we use the docker rm commands with the image name. So what we can do is that we use the docker rm and we use the name Grafana. This is the image name, and now everything is gone. Now let's do this command again, and we do not see anything in the history, which is good. Now, if we want to run again this command, we can use just press it and we see that Docker, if we do Docker PS, we can see the status and now it is again available. So this is a good practice for troubleshooting because it happens to me also many times that I run something with a name like Usman or Grafana OSS, and I want to use another some image for a different project, but forgot to or want to use the same name and don't know what happened, then I always forgot where it was. So this command really helps. So this is a really good command for troubleshooting, and it helps me a lot. Now checking the logs. This is the last part. Uh, so Docker log, you can check the Docker log by simply using Docker logs and container names. So that means that Docker logs and the container name is Grafana. So this is the container name. And now we see a whole history of logs. So this is really big. So what we can do, use the pipe and less, and now we can read it. Now all these logs are stored in var log Grafana. So this is the storing path or the default path. Uh, this is the var log Grafana, and we can also see this information here as well. that even the log itself says that these will be the default path, that path to whom will be this, path to volume will be this, for data, for path to logs will be this, and so on. And we can here check for any issues. For example, currently there is a level warning, something which happened might be due to incorrect login. So far there are no errors. So yeah, so this is pretty much it. This is the wrap up for the installation series. Now we will gonna start how to use Grafana. That means how to first configure a data source, how to create dashboard, how to understand the panel options, how to use the query editor, and so on. We will also follow up later more on the advanced series. The beginner series, I would say, is pretty much done. Now we will start using some more advanced topics. So thank you again. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.